Hello, everyone. Rick Palea. I lead SmartSuite's customer organization and uh, delighted to share the time here and really highlight some of the work that Perry Poussard from UCLA Anderson has done in SmartSuite, is fair to say constantly doing in SmartSuite. In the time that I've spent with Perry over the last several months, I've learned Perry is an absolute creative at heart, very creative minded in the work that he does in SmartSuite and out. And he is also a process junkie. As you'll see, organization is a beautiful thing. And I think in some ways, Perry bringing that organization to his colleagues and sharing his work with his peers has illuminated the need for his work across UCLA. So excited for the journey he's about to share. I do want to call out, we prefer, if you can, to keep the questions in the Q&A, but please keep the chat going. Let's keep it fun. Let's keep the reactions going as you are delighted by what Perry's about to share. And yeah, introduce yourself. Would also be really nice to hear. So Caitlin started us off at you. Hello, Caitlin. Nice to hear where people are perhaps either studying at, working at, any sort of affiliation you have to universities. This is the first of what we hope to be a series of sessions in the education space, which is turning out to be quite a hot segment for us, and that there is a clear value for SmartSuite in primary, secondary, and higher education. And we're really excited to see where it goes. So with that, Perry, please take it away.
Sounds very good. Thank you, Rick. And as Rick has said, please throw questions my way. I will do my best to answer any of them as I can. Of course, there's a whole team behind acquiring SmartSuite at a university. I'm sure we'll bounce off of each other when it comes to the process of doing that at a university. But as Rick said, my name's Perry Poussard. I am an instructional designer and program development manager at UCLA Anderson School of Management. I started at UCLA as a student. So I got my MBA back in 2021. And so I've seen the campus and the department from the eyes of a student, of a staff member, and as a faculty member. So I've got that very unique perspective that I have brought to this IDLX team, which is the Instructional Design and Learning Experience team. So I'm, as I said, a faculty member at UCLA as well as another university. And some of you I have noticed have been looking at my LinkedIn. You'll also notice that I work in the entrepreneurial space as well. I am a producer in the entertainment space with my own production company. So thank you for looking. And as you can imagine, with all of that background, efficiency is hugely key to me. It's critical in order to get all of the work done that I need to do for both this job as well as my entrepreneurial work. So I wanted to give a little bit of background about how we ended up with SmartSuite and how we got to all of the teams and people using the system that we have using it right now. So brief background, our unit, the instructional design unit at UCLA Anderson, was formed in 2021. So right when I graduated, I moved right into this brand new department. And UCLA as a whole decided we're going to change LMS systems. So we moved from the open source Moodle LMS to a Canvas-based LMS system. And our team at that time, even though we envisioned a much larger role for instructional design, we were very much tasked with moving all of our faculty over to this new LMS. So we had this sort of one focus, but we decided we wanted to use this to really create an opportunity to bring people into the instructional design mindset, since we were a new department and many of our faculty hadn't been thinking that way when it came to course design. Over the course of those 2 years, we realized that there was a lot of information just passing through our team and needing to be retrieved from other teams across our department. And that's where I realized, okay, we need to really be organizing this in a better way. I'll show you in a moment what we started with. But because of the last 2 years and really making things more efficient on our end, we are now able to focus on some of those broader things that we're really excited to be digging into, such as curriculum and course mapping and accreditation tracking and record keeping, and the collaboration and efficiency building that we really were able to start with the process of implementing SmartSuite. So here's where we started, a Google Sheet that was tracking each quarter on a different sheet. And as you can see, just from this quick screenshot, it became a little bit of a mess, just in terms of trying to highlight certain things, trying to make sure that certain courses such as our core courses were getting the attention they needed in the midst of the fact that our department hosts somewhere between 150 and 200 courses every quarter. And we had to track all of those courses in terms of what we were doing to transition them from the old LMS system. And a couple things that I noticed as we were going through this was, as much as I love spreadsheets, I remembered that I love databases that much more, primarily because of these analytics and these reports, but just because of the way the data lives. And I was very much reminded, okay, let's find something to solve this problem, because Sheets just wasn't doing it in terms of the robustness that we needed. So I found that there were a number of consolidation opportunities, mainly because we have so many systems, and I'm sure all of you at any university know there are so many systems across the campus, and there were places where we could really help make this one centralized location rather than all the different systems and data sources that we were using. In terms of standardization, again, we used this as an opportunity with our instructional design element to say, look, you're asking us to transition 150 to 200 courses a quarter. We can only really do that if we standardize both the design of these courses as well as some of the tools that we use. So the syllabi, the course site templates, and the process that we use to do this as well. It was all over the place. And so we also found a number of efficiencies opportunities. There's so much overlap and so much repetition since there are so many teams that touch a course. And we found that many teams were asking the same questions of our faculty multiple times just because of how the process was. Enter the solution of using a database system. And we started with a competitor product and realized, I wish it were more quickly than it was, but it took about 9 months for us to realize that SmartSuite was much more willing to work with us. The competitor was not. And I say that with a couple of things in mind. One, again, any of you that really work in the university space, that privacy and security checks are a huge component of what we have to do to onboard any type of platform or system. And the competitor wasn't really willing to talk with us about what those requirements were until we signed a pretty hefty contract financially. And there was no way that we were going to be able to do that. SmartSuite's worked with us the entire way through. They've gone through the rigorous privacy and security checks. I believe Rick said it's an over 400 question process that just that piece of Central Campus puts them through. And then they were willing to work with us and realize that universities require that we start small, and if it works, we'll then build up to something bigger in terms of the contract. So SmartSuite really worked with us to say, okay, we know you're a small team and you're introducing it. Let's get that introduction to happen. And then we can move into getting even more people and more licenses into this. And they were willing to make that happen. So we really appreciated the ability to do that. The other big component of it was that everybody at SmartSuite is willing to listen to us and receive our feedback and hear what we say that we need as a part of the system. And we've had many features that came out within months, if not weeks, of the requests that we've made because they realized how important it was for us. So we realized that SmartSuite and their team are just so willing to take feedback and build the system in a way that's helpful to not just us, but all of their clients. So I know that is quite a bit of a sales pitch, but it really is what worked for us and how it happened for us. And it really did make this match made in heaven type of thing. Now that we've implemented the system, I just want to show you the number of people that are now interacting with this system. I helped build it, absolutely, and my instructional design team really helped fine-tune it. But these are now all the numbers of people that are in the system. So it's our instructional design team, our IT teams, our instructional media team, especially since they work very closely with us around the media that's needed for our faculty and their courses. Our program managers, every single one of our programs and our research centers have someone, whether that's a program manager, a student affairs officer, or a staff lead that really helps with making sure the course logistics. So where is it scheduled? When is it scheduled? What days are they offered? That all goes through that team. And that was a lot of information living with these different silos that we needed to have access to. Our curriculum planning teams and all of our HR teams, the number and handful that they are, also are a group that we felt needed to be looped into this, mainly because we have, in terms of our hiring process, some of our faculty don't get access to all of their systems until very close to a quarter beginning. And so we needed a system that allowed us to interact and communicate with them, even if they didn't have those systems access yet. And SmartSuite and some of the forms we have set up have really helped in that regard. So that's a broad overview of what we're doing over here. And I do have some use cases that I'll show. But Rick or anybody, any major questions that come up just with that background first?
Margaret dropped a question here, Margaret Spence, and this is perhaps something to follow up with, but she's wondering, we also do some programs for course creators, non-academic. This might be for SmartSuite, but I don't know if this is something that you've thought about, Perry. If you've already done it, can you
I have actually, and this, I always joke with people when I show them this system that I've pretty much built a registrar system. So if you are any kind of small university that's like, or a new university or a small course-based business, this could be a kind of solution that might be very beneficial, academic or not. The reason this one is so academic based is just because I have so many systems that I'm having to tie to from Central Campus. And that's, I'll mention that as we go through the use case.
Perfect. Thanks. Thanks, Perry. Yeah, I think we're all eager to see your work.
Awesome. All right. First things first, I'll start by saying, because some of these solutions do contain personally identifiable information, I ended up duplicating all of them. So I have all of my solutions in dummy form here. And because of the way a duplication and a copy works, not all of the automations, for example, copy over. So I've gone in and built a few things in to show you how some of these things work. But there are a lot of features that are not necessarily built into these dummy solutions. But just to show you, in one of our real solutions, this is a solution called Oasis Data. That's our registrar system. And I'm on a page that doesn't have anything that's not easily found on one of our public websites. But I wanted you to see, especially this column, of the number of classes in a term. I love this count feature because it really helps us to make sure that we're syncing correctly with all the other systems and data sources that we have. And so this is indicative of how many courses we're tracking quarter to quarter in terms of setting them up and getting them prepped and ready. And then in terms of the automations I've set up, you'll see here, this is again another one of the real solutions. I've got 40 automations set up in just this one solution to help with a lot of the data transfer that has to happen. But just to show you how complex this whole setup is, because all of my solutions, I have them in this gray color, it's not as easy to differentiate that this is coming from so many different solutions. But I wanted to show really that this is the power that we needed to really track what we were doing with these courses. And it was one of the major things that helped me move from a competitor product over to SmartSuite, was the fact that these solutions can talk to one another rather than needing to copy tables into one main solution that tracked everything. There's a lot of cleanup that still has to happen. I will say that for those of you that are really in deep on the relationships here, there's cleanup I still have to do because I've been building this as I go. But this is the amount of information that's passing back and forth, and has been really helpful to have it all in one place. Here is a dummy version of the course and class database. What we have in here is the course catalog. And I'll say off the bat, this has all been manually input at this point. We're still working with our IT teams to sync with the central campus systems, because it's just, there's a lot of, as all of you probably know, in the university system, there's a lot of red tape to have to pass through, but this will eventually become an automated sync with whatever system they allow us to do it with. But we have the course catalog that I've brought in from, and this is my internet connection, I'm sure, that's taking this kind of time. But we brought in every course that we offer through the School of Management into this particular system, since we're only worried about our department. And within, and tying back to this course catalog, we have our class instances. So every quarter, I bring all of the classes in that I need to be tracking. And from my vantage point as a member of the instructional design team, we're tracking a couple of things. One, the course site builds that are happening within the LMS, and we're tracking the accessibility of these course sites and the materials that are used within the course sites. For us, mainly, we're looking at the syllabus. We want to make sure that the syllabus and the course sites are as accessible as possible, and then take note of where we can improve along the way. And so we're tracking that information in here, along with all of the other information we learned over the 2 years of transitioning our faculty from one LMS to another. We learned what they're tracking, what they use, and some of that data is stuff we use on a regular basis for our teams as well. So when I open a record, the way we built this out, we have all of our basic course information up at the top, and then all of the different teams have their information as well that is divvied out like this, so that they know exactly if they come into the system where they need to go to update or track information. For my team on IDLX, we have who's the assigned instructional designer. So who's the person that's in charge of and really running this particular class instance and taking care of its setup. In terms of class management, I mentioned the program managers. We have someone assigned for that as well for our PMs. And we're tracking really the site build information. So is it a new site that needs all of these tasks, or is it a site copy that a faculty member has taught before and we only need to do the copy procedure? And whenever a class instance is spun up within the system, this list is automatically added to every instance, so that the assigned ID or some of our student workers have that checklist to go back to say, okay, have I done all of these things? One of the things I love about this is that I can say, okay, I took care of this, so I can choose myself or the member who actually took care of the task. And so we can actually track and see who's done which pieces. But we also do that within our notes section here. And you'll see what I absolutely love about the Smart Doc feature is the fact that you can use colors, and it really helps us to see visually, without having to go into the record, what's going on without needing to do that deep dive necessarily. And so we've got a list of colors that tell us just by visual glance, oh, okay, green means it's done. We don't need to look at that course anymore. If I'm in the all view and not in the filtered view where it's not there in the first place. We also are tracking, again, accessibility items. So we have, especially in terms of the syllabus, so we're tracking, is the syllabus on the course site? Has it been posted? Has it been uploaded? Is it in an accessible format? We're lucky that the Canvas LMS has an integration that we're using that immediately right next to the file shows whether there's accessibility flags or not. And so we can easily make these tags. And when we look at our dashboards, while we're setting this up or setting up a quarter's sites from quarter to quarter, we can see very easily, okay, out of the 12 courses I have in this quarter, I have 11 courses that their syllabus isn't posted. This is an issue. And for the class that does have the syllabus posted, it's accessible, so I don't have to necessarily worry about that. And then I have the overview of looking at the status of a course build. Is it complete or not complete for each of the different programs that we have at Anderson? And then I can go into the deep dive of, okay, here's the breakout of my statuses in terms of really looking at the work I need to do from term to term and from course to course when putting these things together. One of the things we very much loved while we were putting the whole system together was realizing that we could get faculty feedback through forms without having to necessarily have them as users within the system. So again, we're starting small. We hope to eventually have them be a bit more ingrained in the system. But for now, we really ask for that feedback from our faculty via these forms that we've set up. And I want to show you 2 of them just because I love the automations behind them. And so I'll do the form and then show you what the automation looks like behind it. One of the first forms that we ask our faculty to fill out is, please send us your syllabus. We are able to really help you as long as we have that document. So if I were to say, okay, we have them choose from the list of courses that they can update. And I love the fact that there's the search feature here, so I can look up my name in terms of finding the course that I'm updating. And then I do my file upload and attach it to the form. And as soon as they do that, they get this syllabus notice to say, and this is the way our system works currently, that thank you so much for sending us the syllabus. It's not uploading anywhere that's able to be accessed by students. In order to do that, you really need to follow this process. So we make sure they're aware of that. And then we say, okay, do you have learning objectives on your syllabus? This was something that helps with our accreditation tracking teams. And so we're trying to get to faculty as soon as possible with that kind of information and those kinds of questions, so that our teams can start to see this information within the system. If they're on the syllabus, yes, great, the form is complete. If not, we provide information on, okay, here are some resources you can use to build those learning objectives so that we have them. And then we need a preliminary list. In terms of our accreditation, this is something that's required to be on a syllabus or available within the course. And so we push that a little bit. And then I just have a who provided the information and have it submit. So we see that submission has now come into the records here. And what I have happening in the background on that one is that the syllabus needs to be attached to the course that they were updating. So you'll see that when it first came in, it said new submission. The automation in the background says copy the syllabus to the class instance so that it lives with the course. And once that's done, update the status to complete. So if I go back into my class instance, and I did that with the business law class here, I go into my course materials and see that the syllabus has now been copied over and added to the class. And this is complete. So this was a form that was submitted that on our end, we didn't need to do anything to actually finish what we needed to do with that. All we need on our team is that syllabus available to us. And once that's in the class record, it's done. That task is complete. So we don't need anything else there. Another form that we have them fill out is their course materials. And this one was very specifically built around the fact that our faculty are asked to submit this information multiple times. So our program managers were asking for this information. If they hadn't built out a course reader and they needed one, they were asked to also email and communicate with our course reader team at Central Campus. We built this form so that this is the one place faculty need to fill out this information. And then once this form is submitted, the PMs get a copy of it, the course reader solutions team gets a copy of it. This gets attached to the class record, so we know that these materials have been requested. And I want you to see how many questions I have on this form. And this is really where the automation and the lookup feature really is so powerful. If I look up my business law class and attach that, and I say, okay, I have this course reader that I need built, and yes, I want the course reader solutions to build it. You'll notice some of this information was already in here. There is the ability to have information be retained by the browser in terms of filling out forms if someone needs to leave and come back to it. So another great feature for those faculty that tend to leave a form in the middle of it and come back to it. And when I submit this particular form, I again come back to the main data source, see that it has come in, and it now says ready for review. This particular one is very specifically set up not to be completed until someone looks at it, because for some of our programs, the program managers are the ones that handle it over the course reader solution. So we make sure that this doesn't get statused as complete until someone has a view of it. But then an email is sent again to the faculty member so that they have a carbon copy of the information they sent. Course Reader Solutions gets a copy of it. The program manager gets a copy of it. If there's an instructional designer already assigned to the course, they'll get a copy of it. So it's very much a way to make sure we get information and are looped into the fact that this information is sent without having to do it via email back and forth between 3 and 4 different teams. And the automation itself, in terms of what that email shares, is pretty cool, because The Course Reader Solutions team needed additional information about the course and about the faculty member. But we felt, why are we asking faculty to put that into the form when the course that they're saying they're updating already has all of that information? So you'll see that the instructor information, the coordinator information, and the course information is all lookup fields. They didn't have to put any of that in, and that information got sent to the people it needed to be sent to. So really, this is helping faculty to only have this one-stop shop in terms of making sure that they only need to do this once, because all of our teams are now accessing the system to get the information if it gets lost in email. The other major automation, and you can see automations are one of my favorite things. The other major automation that I want to show you is one that really helped me in terms of gaining some time back. So every quarter, before we really got SmartSuite onto the enterprise license, I was having to reach out to faculty one by one through our ticketing system. And so that required a lot of copy and paste. And that process with 150 to 200 courses could take anywhere from 8 to 16 hours. So I was spending a day or two on just the process of starting this communication and this conversation with faculty about getting course sites ready. Now, I have an automation set up so that when I click generate IDLX email yes, that email gets sent out. And with the drag and drop feature in SmartSuite as well, what used to take me 8 to 16 hours now takes me 5 minutes. So that's really one of the most powerful process start changes that we've had over the course of the last few months in implementing this. So clicking this yes generates that email. It generates it to the faculty member, as well as, again, any program managers that may be attached to that course. Just saying, okay, we're starting this process, and the email itself gives them the list of all the forms that we want them to fill out so that they're building all the information within SmartSuite for us to use and for all the other teams to use as well. So that there, as you saw, there are plenty of solutions that are connected to all of this to make this all work. But that, in terms of what we do on the instructional design side, that start of the process and the forms and the information we get in are really where we're utilizing the system. We also have our instructional media team that makes sure that any class session recordings are being appropriately attached. They can make their notes in here as well now. The program managers are making sure course materials and logistics are all set up properly so that we're all aware of when is class happening, where is class happening, and all of that's now living in here so that we don't have to do the email or Teams pings to get information that really should be readily available to anyone who needs it. I see a few questions popping up in the Q&A and a few things popping up in chat, so I'm happy to stop and see what those are about.
Yes, Perry, let me cue those up at first. Golf clap plus. It's a thing of beauty that the data schema that you showed, Charlotte's Web 2.0, that was just delightful to see. I love to see data connected like that. And we have questions in a few different realms. I'm going to selfishly jump ahead. Just the two things that stand out in what you've built from across all these solutions. One, just how thoughtful the build is. Like everything is purpose built. There's a reason for it, which begs the question, how do you go about, because you're not just building this for yourself, you're building this for all your peers, right?
Yep.
And there's responsibility in that. How do you go about gathering the needs for others that want to get involved?
We were fortunate in terms of our team that we were forced to touch all of the different offices, departments, and units across our school. So it was just a natural thing that our team built up relationships with all of these different teams across the campus. And so that's where it started. And we knew that was going to be a requirement of our team. And so we started when we developed the team, and I give a huge shout out to my supervisor, Marjorie, who really built this team in such a way that we, from the foundation of it in 2021, wanted to make sure we were well connected with all of these other teams. So we started with initial outreach before we even built a system of, we want to make sure we're in communication with you. And then as we started building things and realizing that we were asking a lot of questions, we'd go back to the stakeholders of those teams and say, okay, we're asking you this question a lot. Is there a way, would you be open to, and many of our teams were very positive about this, would you be open to using a system where all that information is in the system and we don't have to come to you? You just need to put the information in the system and then we'll use the system to get the information. Excuse me. That it happened organically, but we also know, because there are so many teams that we're interacting with here, that we need to keep in constant touch point with them. We do have a number of people who are technology or change adverse. So we're trying to cater it to, this is meant to make things more efficient, meant to make things easier for you. But we know that we have to, in terms of buy-in, we're going to have to do this over the course of quite some time, which is why we haven't rolled this out fully in terms of a full launch yet. We did a sort of soft launch summer of last year. This past fall, we worked on winter, and the entire IDLX team is now in SmartSuite. We're all working on this. We no longer maintain the Google Sheet. And we started introducing all of those other teams to SmartSuite. But we said, look, we want to introduce you to this. We know it's going to, for some of you, feel a bit uncomfortable, but we want to at least expose you to it as we're starting to move towards this, because this is what we're going to be asking faculty to start really using and moving to. So we didn't even introduce this to faculty outright. We gave them the links to the forms. If they came to us and said, I need this or that, and they didn't provide enough information, we said, okay, if you can fill out this form, we'll have all the information we need to handle this request. So we're doing it very strategically in terms of trying to get that full buy-in. We've introduced it to these other teams that are using the data. We've introduced it to administration. Everyone's very excited about these efficiencies that can be built. And that's what we've all got our eye on that prize of doing that. In terms of faculty, we're going to do a soft launch so this winter we're working on spring. We're doing a soft launch where with the core classes, we'll use this system to make the introductions and ask for the information, with the hope that by next academic year and fall, this will be a full rollout to all teams and all faculty.
Brilliant. Very strategic approach, and that's critical. The two things that I think anybody that has worked in the university, college space, or have consulted to or worked with those types of organizations, they know, one, it's not a given that folks that work within a university setting want to adapt new technology. Like, there will certainly be some that are a bit adverse because things are done in a certain way. And so kudos to you and Marjorie for creating that organization, that structure, and the desire to push people a bit, right? Because innovation is not a given.
Absolutely. And I think the other component of this is Marjorie and I think long term, what happens when we're no longer here? Who's maintaining this? And I've built a number of database systems for organizations I've worked for in the past in Access, and I know that those systems went by the wayside within months of my leaving. What's great about this no-code solution is that it can really be passed on much more easily than coded solutions of the past. And so our IT team is definitely looped in, and they know what's going on. They're getting onboarded and really figuring the whole system out. But we're building with that in mind as well, that there is that turnover piece that we need to be thinking about for not only faculty and staff around the campus, but for our team as well.
Fantastic. That's the exact second point there, is respectful. I noticed out of this, the best way to gain adoption from your peers is to build something in such a way that saves them time, whether they ask for it or not. And the perfect example was the way you pull information in. So forms only have to answer 1, 2, 3, 4, instead of here are the 20 other fields that we have this information already, but we're going to ask you anyway. I love that you just very intelligently tighten up that form and make it real easy for folks. I want to jump in some of the questions. We'll start with Greg here. How's it going, Greg? Does your system rely on integrations for creating automations, forms, or is it all within SmartSuite?
Currently, everything is within SmartSuite. We do want the emails are integrated with Outlook, so that's within the system. We do have some items that we want to integrate with SharePoint, and that's not native yet. But we talk with the SmartSuite team and tell them what we're trying to do, and they then work to, and they keep us updated on what can work, what are they working on, and what's in the pipeline. In terms of I've got Make happening. I have a ticketing system, sort of dummy build that I've built that uses Make a little bit, but that's not a system that is necessarily a primary focus right now for our team. I'm just building out stuff for fun on the side. And so that is where those integrations can start to come in. But because of just being in a university setting, one of our big asks was, how much can we make happen within the system so that we don't have to use more systems? It's a lot easier to go to administration and say, I need budget for one system than I need budget for 2 or 3 systems. And so we're really working towards that. There are a couple of things that we've spoken with the team at SmartSuite and said we want that sort of portal feel. So we know that easy portal's out there, but I don't have the ability to go ask for another system at this point. So we're doing everything within the constraints of SmartSuite at this point with the solutions I've showed you.
Love that. Really thoughtful. And Tara wanted you, if you could, to illuminate again the efficiency gains that you realized in using forms for quarterly course setup. Just hammer that point home one more time, please.
Absolutely. I think the 2 that I showed, really, the work that it took me 2 days to just get everyone the information to say, we're ready to start. We need information from you. It used to be copy and paste, 1 to 2 days worth of work. And now it's a 5-minute process by clicking a button and dragging it down. And then the course reader now, all these teams don't have to email back and forth. It's all in one place. And if there are questions that need to happen, obviously an email happens, or if there's questions around our build questions, tickets created. So that now the ticketing system is actually being used for what it's meant for, which is answering questions that are coming up rather than a process management piece, which is what we were doing originally. And now we're actually doing all of the process management in SmartSuite to keep the load off of the ticketing system.
Very good. The driving of that value or that realization upwards, surely Marjorie's across it because you work very tightly with her for other, let's say, leadership or senior folks within UCLA. How are you sharing those gains upward?
Just at this point, it's again, maintaining those relations. And a pain point of ours is getting faculty who don't have access to the UCLA systems yet onboarded into their courses or being able to build their courses without having any of those access points yet. And so with SmartSuite, we can now say, if you fill out these forms, we can get that work done on the back end that you need us to do. And then as soon as you have access, you'll be ready and you'll be prepped and ready. And so really sharing that information with our stakeholders and our partners in all of this and showing them, that really has been the thing, is doing exactly this, showing them the system and saying, here's where these efficiencies are happening. And we get dropped jaws and all kinds of fun reactions because they see it rather than us just telling them. They see the efficiencies that are occurring just because the system is what it is.
Brilliant. I suppose that's a +1 tally in the kind of no code space in general versus a point solution is what you're doing. And while it's not fully done, and maybe it will never be fully done in the sense that you're always innovating, you can show real-time changes and progress along the way versus traditional dev cycle of let's go build it, wait, build it, wait. Yeah. Okay.
Absolutely.
Really nice. And then you touched on the stakeholders joining and some kind of either challenges or things you're working on there. For the stakeholders that have been brought into the loop, can you speak to maybe some tips for the audience around how you have been able to successfully merge people into the world of SmartSuite?
Sure. I will say find your champions on each of the teams that you may need to work with. It really is the easiest way. We all work with enough people to know that you're on a bell curve when it comes to how easy it's going to be to change or implement change with people. And we've been very lucky that we're able to figure out quite quickly who was on the upper end of that curve and who liked change, who liked technology, who wanted to use it, and who wanted to find these efficiencies. And so we find those people, we find those faculty members, we find the team leads or the team users who can influence the rest of the team to say, this really works. And it really is helping me to focus on the other things of my job that I need to be focusing on rather than all these emails that I need to write or answer. And so finding those champions really has been the greatest part of our process in terms of getting people onboarded and used to this. Again, we're going very slow because there is a half a curve that we still need to convince. And so we really need that top half of the curve to really be on our side with us before we start going for the whole curve of people.
Fantastic. Find your champions. Love that advice. And Isaac has one. If we could step back into what you were demonstrating previously, Isaac Duran is asking, are there any guards to prevent someone from moving into completion before review?
So this comes down to the great nuance that SmartSuite has in terms of permissions. I've been building as I go, so there are permissions I still need to go in and update, but you can set permissions as granular as at the field level. And if you want to set this to only PMs can update this field, or only the IDLX team can update this field, that's possible with all of these permission settings. So I don't necessarily have them set up in here because we don't have everyone in the system that can edit right now, but that's part of my cleanup, is finding those kinds of areas, and they can be done, which is, again, a great feature of the SmartSuite platform.
An interesting thought, Isaac. We've seen this in CRM use cases that are built. Let's say you have a table for opportunity management or deal management. Is we have some customers that will set statuses that will actually lock those fields down with permissioning, and the fields will automatically change through automation when people are doing the right things. We call these stage gates in the sales world. It's basically, if you have these bits of information, you've taken these meetings, you've done X, then it moves from stage 2 to stage 3. So that is a consideration, is you could basically just lock that field down and have it auto moved, because you're forcing people then to do the work that you need them to do anyway to ensure that it's moving. Just a thought. All right. Meaty question here, for lack of a better word, and I'm glad we're jumping into this now. Please keep bringing the questions. Perry and I can move at a pretty good pace here to run through the rest of these and make sure everyone feels covered. But Caitlin is calling out what I believe to be the elephant in the room. And that's one of the major obstacles in changing in higher ed, is gaining buy-in from diverse parties, often by expressing what ROI is expected to be. Touched on this just briefly a moment ago. She says, this is especially difficult when our tests and processes aren't always readily quantified. Some humor in there. How did you go about winning buy-in and talking about ROI? Number one. Number two, what advice do you have for speaking administration business language for those that are not necessarily business majors? Really fair question. And third, what has worked well or failed spectacularly in your journey?
All right. Yes, I love this. In terms of buy-in and talking ROI, I think what's been very helpful for us at the beginning of this is our team, Marjorie, had earned some grant money, and she was able to use that towards the purchase of our first set of licenses. So we were able to pretty much say that in terms of the school, it was zero sum for them. There was nothing they were outputting. We were able to use grant money to do it. So that it's a very unique use case that's helpful to us, but that is part of what we did. But as we've been showing admin some of those efficiencies that we've been building, we've also been asking, we haven't just come to these teams to say, we are doing this and we think it's going to be helpful. We've always ended those conversations with, what else do you need? Because we're building something that's very helpful to us. It's very helpful to a number of teams. How can we make this even easier for you? And I think that's been one of the most helpful things for us, is that we're showing them that we're not just doing this for us, we're doing it for them as well. And so the ROI really is, if you can tell me a process that needs efficiency built in, then we can potentially be helpful to that. Maybe not, but it allows us to spark ideas and really have, again, that relationship and that conversation going that allows us to really help them, not just us, and then it's helping all of us. So that's how the buy-in's happening. The other part of that is that we are going to, especially when it comes to the faculty feedback portion, that's really where we know our hardest buy-in's going to be, is getting faculty to use the system. And we're going to push them towards it. We're doing it long-term, and we're doing it very gradually, and right now softly. We're saying, please use these forms to provide us all the information. We have faculty that come back and say, really, they'll respond to the email with, it's just this one thing. I don't need to do that, which we'll take in and we'll use. But long term and over this gradual rollout, we're telling them this is not just information that we need. 2 or 3 other teams need it as well. And that's why we need you to use the form. We're the only ones getting the information when you email it. And we need the other 2 and 3 teams to have that information as well. So that's how we're selling it to faculty. In terms of administration business language, I think that relationship piece, that communication piece is really the biggest component. Even though I'm one of the MBAs on the team, I rarely use that to sell the system. I'm selling the efficiency. I'm selling the fact that it allows us to do more of the work that we really want to be doing. We want to be creating AR and VR learning experiences for students. And if I have the time to do that because I don't need to be building sites or setting up the build for sites anymore, then that's what I'm using to talk to, especially our administration, about why this is such a good use of our time and our funds. What's worked well, what's failed spectacularly. So far, and I will keep fingers crossed and find wood near me to knock on, but so far, everything's been going pretty well. I think it's not yet a failure, but it's something I know I need to fix before we introduce everyone to the system, especially with higher permissions, is I really need to go in and lock the stuff down that people should not be able to change, as someone mentioned earlier. And the only reason that hasn't been done yet is because there weren't people in the system that I needed to keep fields locked out of. And so that, I would say, for me, that would be something I would have set up better in the beginning, is to make sure that permissioning piece, everybody you think is going to be in the system, act as if they are already in the system when you're building, and so that the permissions are set up that way from the get-go. I did, for the most part, have teams set up, but when it came to individuals, we started learning these people need a bit more permission than others. And so you start to learn that sort of a thing that we just didn't know until we really implemented it. But that's the thing I'm keeping my eye on as we introduce more people to the system.
I like it. I suppose the benefit of that, though, is the people that are coming in and offering feedback, you've opened up a world for them to poke and pry and find little things that they otherwise might not have had exposure to.
We currently don't have information in here that is only living in here. That's the other piece of that, is all of this information, other than the notes we're putting in that are very specific to the work we're doing, all of this information lives elsewhere at this point.
Yeah, that's great. Caitlin's next question ties into that. So your faculty, your staff, and their response, the people that have had exposure, any particular things you can call out that they've really enjoyed? And the converse, anything that they've asked you to modify or they haven't loved?
Again, we haven't really pushed it to them, and all the faculty are getting at this point is forms. The one thing we're looking forward to is piping within forms so that faculty really only see the courses that they're attached to, rather than having to search through a whole list. And again, there are parallel products that can help with that for the time being, but I believe something like that's in the pipeline within the system. But staff, the staff that have had some pushback have really been around just, it's an uncomfortability of allowing the system to do what it does, because they're so used to writing out that perfect email, knowing that every bit of information they need in that email is there because they see it before they press the send button. And now we're asking them to press one thing to say, yes, send an email, and it goes without them seeing the final product. So what we did for that was we added an additional button, an additional yes, no trigger, to say, does the program manager need to review the outreach email before it gets sent? And if the PM checks yes, then they do what they would do otherwise to send that initial email. And instead of it going to the faculty member, it goes to the program manager first. And so they get the email, and then they can edit it, of course, before they forward it on to the faculty member. So there are a lot of things we've done in the system to allow for that sort of customization, or that transition of allowing staff to get used to it before letting go of some of the old ways of doing things. And the other big thing is there are a lot of override fields in my solution, because the university has set dates for a quarter. But within the business school, we have programs that operate off date. So we have all kinds of override fields that help build the first day of class, the last day of class, when is the final. And the system figures all that information out based on the default data that's within the term data that we have on the back end. But if there's an override, it then recalculates based on the override information. So that's where we are trying to make sure that we're working with the teams that need a little bit more nuance to the class management, but we're adding that stuff in for them so it becomes that much more comfortable for them.
Smart, really smart approach. 3 minutes left, and perhaps we can carry a little bit further than that, but you ready for some rapid fire, Perry?
Sure.
Okay. All right. Margaret is asking, can you explain the difference between course and class database and curriculum mapping and how they interchange? Just context, large continuing education provider for HR leaders, and we're just moving to SmartSuite. Yay, Margaret. We're in the process of building our workspaces right now. This is super helpful, excellent information.
Yes, so the course and class database is very much specifically the class record in terms of a class and what it has going on. Within a class instance, for example, I know that this class has particular learning objectives. And in terms of mapping, we haven't gone all the way yet. And this is one of the major projects that we have underway with our team. But the learning objectives always just lived on a syllabus and within the registrar system. Now, with this, we're attaching the learning objectives directly to the course. And then when we attach them to the course within the curriculum mapping solution, we now can see, okay, here are all the learning objectives that are happening at Anderson. So here's everything that we know as we put it into the system. You'll see here that we're tracking which classes are trying to achieve the learning objective listed. We then filter it down to here are the courses from the course catalog that are trying to achieve those learning objectives. We're also tracking on the back end, and this is very manual and very much not further down the line. We're tracking the Bloom's level taxonomy to see, okay, are we in the right range for a master's degree program or a PhD program? We want to be at those higher levels of thinking. And if the score doesn't necessarily show that this learning objective is a master's level or a PhD level learning objective, then the IDs can go in and start to say, okay, we have recommendations about how to make this better. And we're tracking this for our own purposes, for our graduate division purposes, as well as accreditation. So really this mapping piece is just trying to bring all of those pieces of the learning experience and instructional design together. I'm sorry we're going to go over time. I'm perfectly fine to keep going.
I'm as well. Yeah, carry on, please. And for others, yeah, please stay on. We will send a copy of this afterwards, of course, and to whatever slides Perry's allowed to share, we'll do that as well.
Fantastic. And just to show the other piece of the mapping is we have an initiative at Anderson to really track case usage. So there's an initiative to say, okay, are we using older cases? Are we using recent cases? Do we have enough diversity in the cases we're using? We have a database here that we're trying to track all of the materials that are being used, all of the readings and articles and cases that are being used. And while we're in here tracking this information, the EDI office set up an entire database of here are all the cases we know to be EDI relevant. So we push faculty here to say, here's some case opportunities for you. But we're also tracking, okay, what courses are using each of these materials because they're linking. We're adding those materials to the class instance. And we're now seeing, okay, here are the classes that are using these materials. If the Foundations of Finance is using this particular textbook, should we be using that in the electives that follow it so that students are not having to buy new textbooks, or is the information I'm trying to teach really coming from a different source? So that's the intention. We're not there yet, but that's what we're intending to do with all of the mapping piece here.
That's great. Hopefully that's helpful, Margaret. Last few here, and I think I can answer a few of these. Greg's asking how many actual users are involved and levels of involvement. I think you two could very much benefit. Greg, I know your role there at Houston, very much benefit from connecting for faculty and other external units. As Perry had mentioned, they're not quite in yet, although they're getting exposure and offering feedback, but that's that next level. Yes, through forums.
We
That,
have 12 licenses that give full access, and then each license gets a number of guest accounts. So there are individuals who have guest accounts so that they can be tagged and assigned items and action items, but we're only using that limited number of licenses. Faculty are only using forms at this point.
perfect. Very good. Anonymous attendee here. When you want to integrate a new process to the system, are you able to add and build the workspace in-house? So quick answer to that is yes. Like what you see here is Perry's beautiful mind at work. So we can assist for sure. And I think we've had some nice consulting sessions with Perry, but he's fully equipped and enabled, and I believe certified, SmartSuite certified, Perry?
Yep,
Yes,
certified
indeed.
consultant.
Highly encourage that track. As the last Thursday of every month, you can take a crash course, a live crash course with Nate and a few of the folks here at SmartSuite. They get you equipped to then go and get SmartSuite certified. We're getting hundreds of people attending these sessions recently plus, so highly encourage that. And then in terms of having a vendor create the space, you could sign up for a free trial now, today. And when you do that, it will create the workspace for you, and then you can invite others in as part of that trial to go and explore. Reach out to us if you need to talk about either trial extensions or a process for getting people involved. But this right here, that's all Perry. We do also.
I was just going to say, a great deal of this was built in the free version before we got Enterprise. Yeah. And then some of those additions, like the number of automations and some of those higher level things, we built in after we got Enterprise. But I was able to do a good deal of this in the free version before we moved up.
Yeah, that's right. I'd be remiss if I didn't call out, we do have a network of partners, a few that specialize in this space. So if you want some introductions, if you want someone to build that foundation for you, with you, or you're scrapped for time and you want someone to do the heavy lift, we certainly have people we can put you in touch with there. I believe some that have actually joined the call here today, fortunately. So we can make some introductions. And then Anonymous also asked, do you have a dedicated team for making changes to the system? You're looking at them. And Perry, you have others that are equipped to build, or is it all you at this point?
Marjorie can, but I've been the point person for this at this point. In terms of tracking, updating user permissions, yeah, that's all on me and us at this point. If our IT team really buys into this, then it's likely, because it's an IT system, it would transfer to them to go through those kinds of processes. But right now, it makes sense for our team to have it because we touch all of the different outside of how IT does. We touch everybody's team in a way that's just very unique.
Yeah, that's great. Let's bring it home. I have some fun ones for you. I always like to end with a bit of fun. Okay, favorite feature. You may have highlighted this. Favorite feature or particular function in SmartSuite?
The two that always come to mind for me are the cross-solution relationships. That's a huge one from any other relationship database I've worked in, and the automations. There's so much work that can get done through automations that do not need human interaction.
Yes. Amen to not do it. I think you said it well before, automating the work that you don't enjoy doing so you can focus on the fun stuff, right? Mm-hmm. Very cool. And then this will be shared with our product team if they're not on here listening, but if you could pitch, or your wish list, we should say, to that team. You did mention SharePoint earlier, which we're working on, but outside of that, what else is on your wish list?
Sure. With the form piping that I mentioned earlier, it's funny because a lot of the things we've thrown your way are starting to be rolled out. All those additions last week the dependencies were huge. We want the dependencies to do more than just Gantt. We want them to do org charts type of thing. But now the foundation's there to really make that an easy update, I think. The answer piping is really a big thing because we want the faculty to be able to go to forms and not be overwhelmed with choices. So that's a huge thing. And then some kind of portal integration would be the other big thing, because when we move to having everybody in the system, we'd want our faculty to only be seeing what they need to see. And again, we can do that all with parallel programs right now, but because of the university system and how it works, if we can get everything within one system, that makes things a lot easier.
Love it. And a quick call out. So feedback.smartsuite.com. Go ahead and offer up whatever sort of features or enhancements for the product that you all are considering. I do encourage that because we listen, as Perry has mentioned. Much of what we create here is a kind of a combination of our vision brought to life through some of the specific things that our customers need and want. Last week, we did a webinar where we rolled out dozens of new features, and this education space needs focus. So if there are education specific things, let's hear it. And so, Perry, I think you're going to be pleasantly not surprised at this point, but you're going to be enjoying some of the enhancements in the coming months, along with what you just mentioned.
Yeah, I'm sure. Caitlin, your LMS integration absolutely would be great for the education space for sure. I want to throw out there, while we still have a good number of people on, that the BET conference is happening in London in a couple weeks. If you're going to be there, I will be there. So I'll be happy to meet with anyone in case you're still putting your connects together for that particular conference. And you can reach out to me on LinkedIn as well to ask any questions or connect.
Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and drop your LinkedIn in there. People should definitely be connecting with Perry, as you've only gotten a glimpse to some of the amazingness that he shared. This is 10% of some of what he's built here, which is really cool. The tips I've gathered, and then the last thing I want to end with, but top tips that I've captured from you, Perry. Number one, make a strategic plan for adoption. It is a challenge in higher education, especially as you're thinking across colleges, across departments, across teams. Be thoughtful in that plan. Two, find your champions. 1000%. And I don't think that's unique to higher education, but it is certainly something that is a must. This is a requirement in higher education. There are other innovators at your universities and colleges, I assure you. When you find them and you show them something you've built in SmartSuite, they will latch on. So well said. Three, just simply asking what your peers need. You can solve problems now quickly. And while you might not want to take on everyone's problems, a few quick wins that you can demonstrate, you instantly now have people that are seeing significant value in your work. I love that. And then four, automate the work you don't enjoy. Focus on the fun stuff. Amen to that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Very good. Where to from here, Perry? So if you're to share what's next up on your docket, I'm sure it's a list of 100 additional things you're considering, but what's your vision for the future use of SmartSuite?
You can see from the screen that's being shared that there are tons of different things I'm working on. So a ticketing system would be nice, because we're having to look at, there are a lot of vendors, and I think this is true of a lot of universities right now, that the universities are asking for much more tech insurance from these tech companies. And so we're looking at a lot of systems that are not necessarily wanting to make those updates. And so a ticketing system would be great. A room scheduling optimizer would be fantastic. We have other members of our team who are project managing in here. So the whole Gantt piece is a huge add for us in the last week. And that's just within the education space. For me, as a entertainment producer, I'm looking at my call sheets and production planning happening within SmartSuite. So there's a lot of different use cases that I'm very excited to build and explore.
Amazing. I think that's a future webinar we have there with your production use cases as that comes to life. Very exciting. It probably fair to say not having to go back and ask for budget every time you're adding a new solution is a perk.
Yes.
Call out a lot of familiar faces here left on, but for anyone listening after the fact, for the ambitious, for the creatives that have new ideas for these solutions, instead of being suppressed and needing to add on, or in traditional, more old school systems, you might say, you are paying each time. Really nice here to have that idea, to go and create it, play with it, iterate on it, share it, get feedback, iterate again, and then bring that to life, and no additional cost. We're a user-based model. So for your solution building, you can get as expansive as you like. As you see, Perry's just getting started, which is crazy to think. All right, folks. Well, please go ahead and connect. Let me drop Perry's LinkedIn in here. He's a wealth of knowledge in the space, and we are truly grateful for you to kick off this series and to be an innovator in higher education. I'm excited to see where we go. Thank you, Perry.
Pleased to do it. I look forward to seeing what we build together.
Amazing. All right, everyone. Have a great rest of your day. Take care.
Have
Cheers.
a good one, everyone.